Something in the atmosphere is different today. After the sustained intensity of the last several weeks, there is a shift in quality that you will probably feel before you can fully articulate it. The moon has moved into Sagittarius, and with that movement, the dominant energy of the day has changed from inward processing to outward orientation, from sitting with what has been surfaced to beginning to move with what has been revealed. This matters more than a simple lunar transit might suggest, because of the specific moment in the cycle at which it is arriving. You have spent the better part of 2 weeks inside one of the more concentrated sequences of astrological activity in recent memory. Eclipses, planetary activations, a retrograde that has been keeping unresolved material in the foreground and blurring the communication layer of your life. All of that has been working on you whether you were consciously engaging with it or not. The work it has been doing is real. The clearing, the surfacing, the honest confrontation with what is genuinely aligned and what has been running past its useful season. That work has changed something about your internal landscape, even if you are still in the process of fully understanding what changed. The Sagittarius moon does not arrive into empty space. It arrives into the aftermath of significant internal processing, and what it brings is exactly what that aftermath needs. The energy of forward motion, of expanded perspective, of the fire that moves you toward what is ahead rather than keeping you circling what is behind. Sagittarius is one of the fire signs, and its specific quality of fire is directional rather than simply warm or intense. Aries fire ignites and initiates. Leo fire radiates and expresses. Sagittarius fire travels. It moves toward a horizon. It seeks the broader view. It is constitutionally uncomfortable with the feeling of being enclosed or stuck or limited to a terrain that has already been fully explored. When the moon moves through Sagittarius, that traveling fire becomes the dominant emotional and instinctual quality of the day. The part of you that wants to move, that wants to explore, that wants the sense of forward progress and expanding possibility, that part becomes louder and more influential today than it has been in the days immediately preceding this. After weeks of inward focus and emotional intensity, the Sagittarius moon landing today is not coincidental. The timing is part of the cycle completing itself. The processing required a period of inward attention. The Sagittarius moon now provides the outward momentum needed to translate what the processing produced into actual forward movement. Pay attention to what that forward movement is pointing toward in your specific life, because it will be visible today in some form. The urge toward movement and expansion can express in a number of different ways under a Sagittarius moon, and it is worth being specific about what you might be noticing, so you can recognize it as signal rather than ordinary restlessness. Some people will feel this as a sudden, clear desire to move forward with a decision that has been sitting in deliberation for an unusually long period. The decision may be about direction, a career change, a relocation, a significant shift in how you are spending your time and energy. Under the Sagittarius moon, the deliberation that had been keeping the decision in suspension starts to feel like an obstacle rather than a protection. The sense that you have been circling the same question for too long, that the time for additional consideration has passed and the time for commitment has arrived, becomes acute. That sense is reliable today. The Sagittarius moon is not pushing you toward recklessness. It is pushing you toward the decision your own processing has already reached, but that you have not yet been willing to commit to explicitly. Others will feel it as a loss of patience with routines and structures that have been producing a sense of constriction. The routine you have been following that has stopped serving the direction you are genuinely moving in. The commitment that made sense at an earlier point, but now feels like it is defining the ceiling of what is possible rather than providing useful structure. The relationship dynamic, the professional arrangement, the daily pattern. The Sagittarius moon removes the tolerance for these constrictions in a way that is hard to ignore. The question today is not whether to feel the impatience, because you will feel it. The question is what the impatience is accurately pointing at, and whether you are willing to treat it as navigational information rather than something to be managed back into compliance. There is also a quality of intellectual and philosophical opening that the Sagittarius moon activates. Sagittarius governs the broader picture, the larger questions of meaning, direction, and what your life is actually oriented toward at its most fundamental level. After weeks of processing focused on specific relationships and immediate situations, the Sagittarius moon invites you to step back far enough to see the larger arc. Where are you actually heading? What does the direction of your life look like when you zoom out past the immediate pressures and the specific unresolved matters? What is the larger story that all of these recent weeks of processing and clearing and redirecting have been serving? These questions are not abstract exercises today. They are genuinely productive because the Sagittarius moon provides the instinctual orientation toward the long view that makes those questions answerable in a felt sense rather than only in an analytical one. Let yourself sit with the bigger question today rather than staying exclusively in the terrain of the specific and immediate. Some people will notice something that looks like a sudden clarity about long-term direction, a sense of where the path is heading that has not been this visible in some time. That clarity is partly a product of the Sagittarius moon opening the longer view, and partly a product of the recent weeks of clearing, making that view less obstructed. When the immediate emotional terrain is less cluttered, the longer horizon becomes more visible. The direction you are genuinely heading, the one that the genuine version of your desires and your values and your deepest priorities is pointing toward, is more legible today than it has been recently. Pay attention to what you see when you look at that longer horizon today. Not what you think you should want, not the version of your future that fits most neatly into the expectations of the people around you or the practical considerations that usually dominate planning. The genuine direction, the one that produces a felt sense of alignment when you let yourself look at it honestly. The Sagittarius moon is creating conditions under which that genuine direction is more visible, and what you see in those conditions is worth holding on to clearly. Unexpected opportunities or conversations that point toward a new direction are also a feature of Sagittarius moon days, particularly ones arriving in the wake of significant clearing. Sagittarius rules the domains of travel, higher education, philosophy, foreign cultures, publishing and broad communication, and the general category of experiences that expand your understanding of what is possible. Under a Sagittarius moon, the universe tends to surface opportunities in these domains in ways that feel like they arrived from outside your planning. A conversation that takes a turn toward possibilities you had not fully considered. An invitation or offer that does not fit the current structure of your life, but that points toward the structure your life could have. A piece of information that opens a door you did not know was there. When these arrive today, they deserve more consideration than an ordinary opportunity would receive. The Sagittarius moon in the aftermath of a significant eclipse and activation cycle is not producing random suggestions. The opportunities that surface today are connected to the direction that the recent processing has been clearing a path toward. They are showing you something about where the momentum is actually heading and what resources and possibilities are available in that direction. The relationship between the Sagittarius moon's forward energy and the lingering Mercury retrograde in Pisces is worth understanding, because these two influences are operating simultaneously and they are pointing in somewhat different directions. The Sagittarius moon is pushing toward movement and expansion. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is still calling for care around communication and final commitments. These two influences are not contradictory, they are addressing different domains. The Sagittarius moon is providing directional orientation and forward energy. Mercury retrograde is still advising care around the execution of that forward energy in specific communication-heavy domains. What this means practically is that today is excellent for internal decision-making, for gaining clarity about direction, for receiving the Sagittarius moon's broader perspective on where you are heading. The decisions and realizations that arrive today are reliable and worth holding on to. The execution of those decisions, particularly if execution involves significant communications, formal commitments, or contracts, benefits from waiting until after Mercury turns direct, which is not far off. The knowing can be today's work. The formal external expression of the knowing can be next week's work. This is not the old Mercury retrograde guidance about waiting and holding back. This is a more specific calibration, internal readiness today, external execution once the communication environment has cleared. The Sagittarius moon and Mercury retrograde together are essentially offering you the gift of deep directional clarity at a point when acting on it too hastily in the external world still carries some risk of miscommunication or incomplete information. Use today to fully receive and integrate the directional clarity. The acting on it will come. The Sagittarius moon also activates something that the eclipse and Venus-Uranus weeks had somewhat compressed: the capacity for genuine enthusiasm. The weeks of processing and pressure and honest confrontation with what is not working had a necessary quality of seriousness, even heaviness. The Sagittarius moon is not heavy. It is one of the most genuinely optimistic lunar transits available in the cycle, not because it denies difficulty, but because it orients toward what is possible with a natural confidence that difficulties are navigable rather than final. If you have been carrying the weight of the last several weeks with a sense of seriousness that has left little room for the actual forward pull of what excites you, the Sagittarius moon is offering a counterweight today. The sense of what is genuinely possible. The sense of what you are moving toward rather than what you are moving away from. The vision of the path opening rather than the weight of the clearing required to open it. Allow yourself to feel that today. Not as a bypass of the real work that the recent weeks have been doing, but as the natural complement to it. The clearing serves the opening. The Sagittarius moon is showing you the opening. The impulse toward exploration that the Sagittarius moon activates, whether that takes the form of actual physical travel, or intellectual exploration, or creative direction, or the expansive quality of a conversation that goes to genuinely new places, is worth following today rather than containing. After weeks of necessary inward focus, the outward orientation has genuine energy behind it, and moving with that energy rather than applying the same containment strategies that were appropriate during the peak intensity of the eclipse and retrograde window will serve you better. The appropriate level of caution for today is different from the caution that was appropriate last week. Last week, the caution was about not acting from the most distorted version of your perception under Mercury retrograde conditions of maximum interference. Today, the caution is simply about distinguishing the Sagittarius moon's genuine forward orientation from the specific Sagittarian tendency toward premature departure, toward exiting situations that are actually still worth working through simply because the Sagittarian energy makes staying feel temporarily intolerable. That distinction is worth making with honesty. Is the thing you want to leave something that the eclipse cycle has genuinely revealed as misaligned with your path? Or is it something that the Sagittarius moon's constriction intolerance is making feel more limiting than it actually is? Genuine departure from a genuinely outgrown situation has a quality of clarity and completion behind it. Sagittarian flight from something that simply feels confining today has more of a quality of urgency and impatience without the same depth of underlying knowing. You can usually feel the difference if you sit with the impulse long enough to assess it rather than immediately following it. Some days function as genuine turning points. Days when something in the internal landscape shifts past a threshold, when the desire for forward motion becomes stronger than the comfort of the familiar arrangement, when the direction ahead becomes more vivid and more compelling than the territory behind. March 10th has the characteristics of one of those days for many people, not because of any single dramatic celestial event, but because of the specific confluence of what the Sagittarius moon is bringing into the aftermath of a significant processing sequence. The clearing is largely done. The direction is more visible. The forward energy is available. The internal pull toward the broader path, toward the version of your life that more fully reflects your genuine direction and your genuine desires, is running today with the specific confidence that Sagittarius fire at its best produces. Notice what it is pointing toward. Take seriously what the longer view reveals when you step back far enough to see it. Let the conversations that open unexpected directions open you to what they are showing, and allow the internal clarity that arrives today to be received fully, so that when the conditions for external action are right, which is not far off, you have a precise and grounded sense of the direction you are taking and why. Some changes begin as feelings, a pull, a direction, a fire that knows where it wants to travel before the road is fully mapped. The Sagittarius moon is offering you that feeling today. Receive it, orient by it, and trust that the path it is showing you is real.